So when I tell you that it's hard, I just mean to be inside my brain. That's hard. And I'm there 24/7. I can't get out of it.
Aren't we all technically in our heads? That's what being conscious is. Welcome to being human. By now, you're probably all familiar with Rachel Zegler and the problems she's causing both for herself and Disney. And to be clear, we're not here to pile on her. The focus is another example of Disney dropping the ball. When I was in radio, promotions we did with Disney were an absolute pain because of how strict and militant their rules were. But it was that rigidity and care for their brand that got them to where they are. But all of that careful control has gone out the window, and Rachel Zegler is another example.
I can also be having the greatest time and simultaneously wishing people would stop sending me death threats. And maybe that's a weird takeaway for this video.
That was a portion of a clip from her YouTube channel that's making the rounds currently on the internet as an apology piece for her recent behavior. That's not true. The video is actually from around a year ago when she was apologizing for other behavior called "I ran away from my problems for 72 hours. We hear a lot about how hard it is to be her and to be attacked, but nothing really approaching an apology or accountability. But what did she do to earn all this online hate? It's hard to tell what she might be apologizing for because there's so much. She attacked Britney Spears, who was going through mental issues of her own, by mocking her tweets to her sister Jamie Lynn.
Jamie Lynn, seriously? Come on! Please stop with these crazy lies for the Hollywood books. Now and only now. I do know only a scum person would make up such things about someone.
Then at another point, she sent her fan base to attack Gina Carano on Twitter for not using pronouns in her bio. Someone else who was having a hard time, having been fired by Disney, kicking people when they're down seems to be a theme. Steven Spielberg's West Side Story remake tanked at the box office and famously didn't use subtitles. Her response was that it was our fault that we didn't know Spanish. She made a stink about not being invited to the Oscars, despite not being nominated for anything. But instead of just explaining to her how things work, the forces behind the scenes, be they Disney, Spielberg, or the Academy, made her a presenter and got her into the show that way. When you constantly enable bad behavior, there's going to come a reckoning. Despite all this problematic behavior, Disney cast her as Snow White anyway, and the lack of due diligence, or ignoring it, take your pick, has smacked them in the face. Branding experts warn Rachel Zegler backlash could ruin Disney's big-budget Snow White remake and predict executives will be having crisis talks in order to win back fans ahead of a 2024 release. I can't fathom them coming up with any kind of spin that's going to get people to open up their wallets. I don't even think hate watching is on the table. The irony here is that while Disney might already have a plan of action to combat this, as far as giving her direction and the tools to try and spin this, they can't do anything because of the strike. Hands are tied. Lips are sealed. All they can do is watch helplessly. Oh yeah, and the strike.
If I'm going to stand there 18 hours and impress an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
Which understandably pissed even more people off. You already got your bag for wearing that dress. You made millions. You've got a platform and privilege, which means every time somebody shoves a camera in your face, you make a plea for the real reason those strikes are happening. The people who didn't get the $1 million paydays and live paycheck to paycheck. Don't make it about you. But again, this is about guidance and support, and she clearly has had neither. She got swept up right out of high school into a Steven Spielberg movie, sucked up into the jaws of the machine, and that machine is chewing her up and on the brink of spitting her out. Even in the beginning of the Snow White storm, even though she was towing the party line, she was struggling to stay on the company narrative.
Have you ever been to that Snow White ride at Disneyland?
I get stopped for photos every time I'm online for the Snow White ride, and it is I have to pretend like, oh God, well, crazy that we're in front of this.
Wait, how often are you in line for the Snow White ride?
I'm a narcissist.
And then at some point, she threw the playbook out the window completely, contradicting things she said before and thrashing the beloved source material.
I was scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again. Like, I'm being so serious. I watched it once and then I went on the ride in Disney World, which was called Snow White's Scary Adventures. Doesn't sound like something a little kid would like. Was terrified of it. Never revisited Snow White again. So I watched it for the first time in probably 16, 17 years when I was doing this film. The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird. So we didn't do that this time.
A stalker? Are you high? The reason Snow White runs away from him at all is because she's dressed in her crappy outdoor clothes, and it was unseemly back in those days for men and women of nobility to be alone together without a chaperone. But as soon as she's out of sight, it's pretty clear that her heart is all aflutter for him. And you know what? It's okay. It's perfectly acceptable for two people to be attracted to each other and consider having a loving relationship. If anything, that's the real unusual aspect to the story. Back in those days, it was arranged marriages and kids fighting to marry who they wanted to instead of who they were supposed to. How many times have we seen that trope? But yeah, let's whip out the most degrading and shaming language we can conjure up. Stalker.
It's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows?
Can you imagine being the prince or whatever he is in the story and seeing your coworker who you've been shooting with already casually talking about leaving all your work on the cutting room floor just because you're a man? Seriously? Make no mistake, misogyny shouldn't be tolerated. But the same goes for Misandry. If you flip the script, you can easily see how unacceptable this is. And when I talk about guidance, don't forget that through all of those clips you just watched, Gal Gadot is right there. She's a veteran. She knows how to navigate. She would be the perfect person to help guide and counsel Rachel in this overwhelming new world that she's in. Or is she tacitly co-signing on this? Or could this be the actual official party line from Disney? I can't tell if she's trying to get through this while avoiding accountability, or struggling mentally, or both. Either way, she needs help. And as the live-action face of Princess #1, Disney needs to get in there and give her the support she needs.
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
The queen is already a girl boss and a pretty formidable one. No man took the throne from her when the king died. Gender isn't an issue with the story. It's ironic and, for me, a little bit sad that Rachel ends the video that this show started off with, "Call your therapist, lol." She needs help. How much is unclear, potentially a lot. At a minimum, she needs guidance from Disney on how to conduct herself, because they've already invested $200 million in this movie, and they can't afford to take another blow. Here's my concern. All the movies she's been in have flopped, even without her help. West Side Story, Shazam, now potentially Snow White. Pair that with being generally problematic, no one is going to want to touch her. Her career will be over before it ever had a chance. Yes, her own mouth would have had a lot to do with that, but we have to look at the people around her, the enablers, the ones who didn't help guide her and teach her what she needed to know. And that includes teaching her to take accountability for her own words and actions. They failed her. As for the twisted feminist message Rachel is peddling, TikToker Cozy with Angie summed it up best, so I'll let her have the last word.
Not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
I could literally write a PhD thesis on the pseudo-feminism that is criticizing Disney princesses. Criticizing Disney princesses is not feminist. Not every woman is a leader. Not every woman wants to be a leader. Not every woman wants or craves power, and that's okay. It is not anti-feminist to want to fall in love, to want to get married, to want to stay at home, to be soft, to want to be a homemaker. None of these things make you less valuable as a person or a woman. The criticism of Disney princesses is always based on one of two things: criticizing women for things that men get to do unquestioned, or writing off a woman entirely because she is or wants to fall in love. We criticize Princess Ariel and completely write her off and say that she's pathetic and has no sense of self because she gave up her voice for the sake of a man, failing to realize that the entire premise of the movie is that he fell in love with the voice that she thought she had to give up because of the evil sea witch in order to be loved by him. And we write off her incredible ability to see past the prejudice that she was born into and think for herself and find out whether or not humans actually were bad and explore her curiosity and find things out for herself instead of just believing everything that everybody else was telling her to believe. We completely write off Cinderella's incredible capability of having hope and staying kind in the face of years and years and years of abuse solely because she fell in love and happened to marry a prince. And we say that she was waiting for a prince to come save her from her problems, when in reality, there's no real indication of that in the movie whatsoever. When a woman does something altruistic, she's pathetic and has no sense of self. But when a man does something altruistic, he's a hero. When was the last time you heard anybody criticize Hercules for jumping into the depths of the underworld in order to save Meg and giving up everything he had worked his entire life for so that he could be with her? All you're doing is criticizing women for things that men get to do unquestioned and denying them their right to be or fall in love. Real feminism is about depicting women who have different wants and different needs and different personalities, who come from different races and ethnicities, and depicting them all as equally valuable with something to offer and something to say and a voice that should be heard. Thinking that a woman is any less valuable because she falls in love or because she accepts help from somebody instead of girl bossing her way through her problems is not feminist.